I remember the first time I got a tax surprise from one of my investments. I didn't sell anything. I didn't cash out. I just logged into my account one day, and there it was, a tax bill. And I thought, wait, why am I paying taxes on money I never touched? Turns out, some of the ETFs I held, ones I thought were hands-off and low maintenance, were quietly generating taxable events. Not huge ones, but enough to slow down the compounding I was counting on. And I realized something important. It's not just how much you invest, it's where you invest, what you choose, and how those choices show up at tax time, especially with the 2026 tax changes coming. Most people think taxes hit you when you sell, but that's not always true. And what you don't know about ETFs could quietly cost you thousands over time. In this video, I'm going to share 4 ETF moves you can make now, moves I wish someone had shown me earlier. We're not talking about fancy hacks or shortcuts, just simple, smart choices that help you keep more of what you earn and grow your wealth over time. And there's a twist most people miss, something that could make the difference between a smooth ride and a bumpy tax surprise in 2026. Let's unpack it together. Most people don't think about taxes when they invest, and I get it. It's not exciting. It feels far away. We focus on returns, on growth, on that big number we want to hit one day. But here's the truth. It's the small leaks, the little taxes that happen quietly, year after year, that can slow down those dreams more than you think. Imagine planting a tree for your future. You water it, you check it, you wait. But what if the soil under it slowly washed away a little each year? That's what these hidden taxes can do. You won't see the damage right away, but over time, it adds up, and it matters. The reason many people ignore this is simple. Taxes feel boring. They're not loud. They don't pop up with alerts. But the quiet ones, the ones you don't even realize are happening, are the ones that drag on your growth the most. Now here's where it gets personal. You might be in one of 3 groups. You might be an accumulator. You're building your wealth, stacking slowly, and looking to grow over the long haul. Or maybe you're a planner. You've started balancing saving with life goals. You want flexibility, but you also want to stay smart. Or you might be a protector. You've built something, and now your goal is to keep it safe, steady, and efficient. Each of these types needs to play defense in a different way. And over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the moves that match your type. Because the truth is, one of your ETFs might already be leaking returns, and fixing it doesn't take a full overhaul. Just one smart switch could stop that leak. Let's see how. Let me tell you something I learned the slow way. Where you hold your investments matters just as much as what you invest in. I used to think, hey, this ETF looks solid. I'll just buy it in my brokerage account. I didn't think twice about what type of account it was in. But here's what I missed. The exact same ETF can give you 2 very different results depending on where you keep it. Let's say you buy a dividend-paying ETF. If it's in a taxable account, you'll likely owe taxes on those dividends every single year, even if you reinvest them. But if that same ETF is in a Roth IRA, those dividends grow tax-free. You don't pay anything now and not later either. That's a huge difference over time. But a lot of people, especially when they're just starting, fall into what I call the comfort habit. They pick one account, usually their main brokerage, and buy everything there. It feels simple. One login, one place to check. No confusion. But over the long run, it's like trying to win a race with one shoe untied. Here's the smarter move. Think of your accounts like buckets, and each one is built for a different kind of investment. Your taxable account is best for ETFs that don't throw off a lot of taxable income. These are usually low-turnover index funds, set-it-and-forget-it types. Your traditional 401k or IRA is great for stuff that kicks out regular income or capital gains because you defer the taxes later. Your Roth IRA, that's your turbocharged bucket, the place you want your highest growth ETFs because any gains are tax-free forever if you follow the rules. And here's a simple tip. One of these accounts should be boring on purpose, quiet, predictable, efficient. That's where your core ETF should live. We'll look at how to tell which ETFs belong where, starting with the next move. Here's something that tripped me up early on. I thought a dividend was a dividend. If an ETF paid me 4%, I figured, great, free money. But what I didn't realize is that not all dividends are taxed the same. Let's take 2 ETFs. Both pay 4% a year. Sounds equal, right? But one of them gives you what's called qualified dividends.
Those are taxed at a lower rate, like long-term capital gains.
The other one gives you ordinary dividends, which get taxed just like your job income. That could mean a big difference in how much you actually keep. Let's say you're in the 24% tax bracket. A qualified dividend might only get taxed at 15%, but an ordinary dividend, you're paying 24%, maybe even more if you cross into higher brackets. That's a bigger chunk going to taxes on the exact same payout. Why do most people miss this? It's simple. Chasing yield feels like progress. A bigger number feels like you're winning. This ETF pays 6%. That one only pays 3%. But that's the trap. The net income, what you actually keep, is what really counts. So here's the myth I want to gently reframe right now. Higher yield is not always higher income. If it's not tax efficient, a high-yield ETF could end up giving you less to keep, not more. That's why I always ask, is this yield coming with a tax bill attached? This is where smart investors start separating their strategies. It's not about chasing the highest number. It's about choosing the right kind of income for the right account. And there's one more layer to this, especially if you're in a higher income range, something called the net investment income tax. That's where the IRS can skim an extra 3.8% off the top of your investment income. We'll touch on that soon. But first, let's fix one more common blind spot: bond ETFs, because that 5% yield you see, it might not actually be 5%. Let's talk about bond ETFs for a second, because this is where a lot of people get tripped up. You see a bond fund with a nice, clean 5% yield, and you think, that's solid, safe, predictable. But what really matters is not what it says it pays, it's what you actually get to keep after taxes. Here's a quick story. Last year, I was comparing two bond ETFs. One had a 5% yield, the other had 4%. Easy choice, right? I was about to go with the 5% until I did the math. That 5% came from taxable corporate bonds in a regular brokerage account. After my tax rate, it ended up being more like 3.8% in real terms. The 4% one was a municipal bond ETF, and most of the income was federal tax-free. For my situation, it actually gave me more money in the end, even though the headline number looked smaller. It's like shopping at the grocery store. One box says it's on sale for $10, but when you check out, there's tax, fees, and a surprise charge. The other one says $9.50, and that's exactly what you pay. Which one really costs less? Our brains love the bigger number. It's simple. It feels better. But with bond ETFs, that number can be misleading. So here's the smarter move. Always think in terms of after-tax yield. A rough formula looks like this. After-tax yield equals yield times 1 minus your tax rate. Even if you don't crunch the numbers exactly, just knowing to ask the question puts you ahead of most investors. And here's the twist. Sometimes the so-called safe choice, the one with the higher yield, can quietly pay you less than a lower-yielding fund just because of taxes. Up next, I'll show you one of the only times a loss in your portfolio can actually help you grow faster if you use it the right way. Most people hate seeing red in their portfolio. When the market drops, it's natural to feel stuck. You log in, see the loss, and your brain says, just wait, maybe it'll bounce back. And so you do nothing. But here's the thing. Down markets don't have to mean lost time. If you understand how to use them, they can actually help you grow smarter. This is called tax loss harvesting, and it's way simpler than it sounds. Here's the idea. Let's say you bought an ETF for $1,000, and now it's worth $900. You can sell it, lock in that $100 loss, and use that loss to lower your taxes, either this year or in the future. Then you take that $900 and buy a similar ETF, so you stay invested and don't miss out on any bounce back. Now, here's the part where I want you to guess. What's the one rule that can mess this up? If you said buying the same ETF again too soon, you're right. That's the wash sale rule. If you sell something at a loss and buy the same or too similar investment within 30 days, the IRS says that loss doesn't count. So if you're going to harvest losses, you need to wait at least 30 days before rebuying that same ETF,
or swap into a different but similar ETF that gives you the same market exposure without breaking the rule. Also, quick tip, if you have auto dividend reinvestment turned on, it could accidentally trigger a wash sale without you realizing. Just one tiny setting. That's why I always pause auto reinvest on positions I'm harvesting.
This move takes a little planning, but it can add up big over time, especially for accumulators and planners. You're turning a short-term dip into a long-term benefit. So now that we've walked through all 4 moves, I'll show you how I tie it all together with one simple checklist I review every year. Takes 10 minutes, makes a huge difference. Every year, I do a quick 10-minute checkup on my investments. Not because I'm trying to time the market or chase something new, but because I want to protect what I'm building. And if you're an accumulator, like many of us are in our 30s and 40s, this is how you protect your growth before small leaks turn into big problems. If you're a planner, you're probably juggling goals, maybe saving for a home, your kids, or early retirement. This checkup helps reduce surprises that could throw your plan off. And if you're a protector, someone closer to retirement or already living off investments, this is how you reduce risk, lower taxes, and keep more of what you've earned. Here's my simple checklist. I run through it once a year. Are my ETFs in the right accounts? Tax efficient in taxable, high yield in tax advantaged? Am I getting hit with unexpected dividend taxes? Check if they're qualified. Am I chasing yield or keeping the most after tax? Focus on after-tax returns. Do I have any losses to harvest or gains to manage without breaking wash sale rules? That's it. No fancy tools, no chasing headlines, just a calm review to avoid silent mistakes. Because smart investing isn't about doing more, it's about making fewer mistakes, slowly and consistently. Now, here's what I want you to do next. If you found this helpful, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more clear, real talk investing insights, and send this to a friend who's deep into ETFs. We've all got one. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which one are you right now? Accumulator, planner, or protector? And are you investing mostly in a taxable account or a retirement account? I'll be down there answering questions and sharing extra tips. In the next video, I'll show you 3 ETFs that look safe but can surprise you big time at tax season. Don't miss it. See you soon.